Welcome again. This is our final week of our series, Active Churches Worldly. If you're watching on your computer, if you're watching at home, if you're watching on your mobile device, thank you for jumping in to all these weeks of this series with us. We're going to close out hearing from our pastor, Mike Frisch, once again, as he just discusses this idea that all of these things that we've talked about, we've heard from so many great people, but it's all for love. And Jesus is about love. And this verse that we see on t-shirts and plastered across athletes' faces, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, is what we're all about and why we want to be worldly. Mike's going to jump in with a story about a basketball player, Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. So jump in and let's hear from Pastor Mike.
All right, so week 7. And if we just want to recap a little bit, we learned that Casey is violent with socks, right? We don't like Shauna because she made us cry. And we just love Megan. She's a great prop for us, right? You know? So this week I'm excited about, and I want to start with a story. There's a basketball player, Hall of Famer named Wilt Chamberlain. And Wilt scored 100 points in a game, and it's never been surpassed. A couple years ago, Kobe Bryant scored 80, and people were freaking out, thought he could get to 100, but it just is almost an impossible feat, right? And he scored 100 points. There's a picture of him holding up, like with crayon on a piece of paper, like, I scored 100 points. And you can find it anywhere. And the funny thing is there wasn't really TV during that time. It was the 60s. And there wasn't really anybody that was there. In fact, the rumor is that there was probably about 4,500 people there. Yet, after he scored 100 points, the joke now is there was about 40,000 people there. Because people are like, were you there when Wilt? Yeah, I was there. Were you there? Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was there. And people who were connected to somebody then began to say that they were there. And so it went from 4,000 to like 40,000 people. Why? Because it was a great feat. It's never been surpassed before. And I love great feat, not like my feet, but like feet, like we've accomplished something, right? Joe, you did in week 2, you talked about confession. So I'm going to make a confession that my son and I on Monday nights watch WWE Monday Night Raw. So if your respect has just lowered for me, I'm sorry. But there was a moment where, and I know it's scripted, and I know it's pretend, I get it, but there was a moment where 2 really big guys did you not know that, Josh? There was 2 really big guys that were wrestling, and one guy takes him up to like the top rope, and they suplex him down, and they hit the mat, and the whole ring explodes, right? The whole ring falls apart. And it was like this incredible moment, and the crowd's freaking out, and people are cheering and stuff. And so just recently, Gav and I watched that, and then just recently we watched a video that replayed that. And it was great, because Gav goes, oh, I remember that. That was a great moment. And he was reliving that, and he was like, I remember like we both jumped up, and we were like, oh my gosh, the ring exploded, you know? Because it was a great feat. It was a great moment. We love being a part of great moments. Sometimes, even if we weren't there, we love being a part of great moments, or maybe reliving that moment through other people. The greatest moment of all time is what Paul talks about in Romans, that the greatest thing that you can do is to give your life for a friend. The greatest act of love is giving of your life. Jesus even referenced that, right? And then the greater moment of even just giving your life is the resurrection. And we get to live in that moment. We get to celebrate that moment every year at Easter, but really every day. We had nothing to do with that moment. I wasn't there. You weren't there. But yet it's a moment that we get to celebrate and we get to be a part of. And if there was an iPhone, or if there was a phone that was outside of the tomb and it was filming that day, we believe confidently that Jesus would have walked out of that tomb, right? We believe that he is alive. So it's not because he was a good person, or not because that he said some really great things that we believe in him. It's because of the resurrection. And the resurrection invites us into a great moment. It invites us to celebrate what God is doing in this world. And there are 3 things that one writer talks about. He talks about we're justified, we're sanctified, and we're glorified. Now, those are churchy words, right? Those are big, giant churchy words, and maybe we learned that in Bible college. And so let me explain those. Justified means that we are made right. Our past, our present, and our future, we're made right. When we're sanctified, we are being made whole. Our past, our present, and our future are being made whole. And then glorified is we are being made complete. We are being made complete in our past, our present, and our future. And I didn't do anything to deserve that. I didn't do anything to earn that. It's almost like Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points, And now I'm saying, oh, I was there. It's almost like I was a part of when the ring exploded on Monday Night Raw. I was there. Oh, Jesus resurrected? I was there. And so what's true of Jesus is true of me when I know Jesus Christ is my Lord. And so we're coming to the culmination of Easter, and we're coming to the culmination of the Jesus story. And the culmination is he's alive. He's not dead. And he has risen. And so here we are, made new because of what he did, not because of what we did. And there's a great pastor, his name's Andy Stanley, that he says, in order to understand why, submit and apply. And he uses that analogy in the story of Naaman in the Old Testament. You familiar with that story? Where Naaman is a military guy, he gets leprosy, and then he goes, well, there's a prophet of God in Israel, maybe I should go talk to him. In fact, his servant says, why don't you go talk to him? So he does. And the prophet doesn't even come to the door. The prophet sends his servant to the door and says, hey, yeah, just go dip in the Jordan River. No big deal. And Naaman doesn't want to do it. He's like, that's very beneath me. I don't want to do that. And his servant goes, well, maybe you should give it a shot. Just see what happens. And so you can picture him getting into the river, dipping once, nothing happens. Are you kidding me? Why am I doing this? He said 7 times, dipping twice, still nothing. 3 times, still nothing. 4, 5, 6. And then I'm sure on the 6th time, like, so you just got one more. Just do one more. Let's see what happens. He says 7. And then he says when he goes under and he comes out, the actual phrasing is that his skin is as smooth as a baby's skin. And Stanley's point is he didn't understand why he was asked to do that. He was just told to do that. And in order to understand why, submit and apply. In order to understand why Jesus died and rose for us, it's important for us to submit to what he's offered us, be a part of that great feat, right? And then apply what it does in our lives. So if I am being justified, sanctified, glorified, then I'm going to lean into this Jesus and know that I'm not going to live in my past anymore because my past is being made new. I'm going to live in my present with a sense that I am been set free because I've made this choice to be set free. And then I'm going to live in my future knowing that I got something greater that's ahead of me because I got to be a part of the feat, right? I got to be a part of the resurrection. I was there because Jesus is my Lord. There's this pastor named Rob Bell, and I love this quote from him when he talks about how Jesus loves us and the invitation of love. And he says, love demands freedom. It demands freedom. It always has, and it always will. And here's the great part. We are free to resist. We are free to reject. We are free to rebel against God in any way. We can have all the hell we want, or we are free to submit, and we are free to apply, and we are free to live. And so my hope and my desire as we've talked through being active church and being worldly because God is for the world, that we would apply and live in the resurrection of Jesus Christ.